We're going live now.
Great. Okay. Yeah, if you haven't already, please, did you get the Google Doc from your email? Okay. Just follow the steps if you haven't already. Make a copy, share with me. I'll talk about it in some more detail, but basically, this is not the actual essay draft, but everything on your own Google Doc. So I can see it, also share with each other if you're doing something. And, your notes will be there. So what you notice when you actually get started, that there are already portions of take guided notes. If it says guided notes, that means you can take whatever notes you want, but in addition to that, I want you to fill in the blanks of whatever paper. So that's stuff that I absolutely like. You definitely need to get on, and I will be checking for things next week. Got it. So if you come to an end of a section, you still have some blank spots or something like that. Means you probably missed something I said or I forgot. So if that happens, let me know. Or, and we'll talk about it. So I don't want to move ahead without you fully understanding something. This isn't like class. It can be kind of tricky, but at the same time, you need to understand certain basic things. You don't need to be an expert in this. You don't need to be able to teach it to somebody else, but you need to know enough. So I'm not going to try to over teach you, make you absolute experts in this, because you only have to do it once. So after this week and whenever you get it done next week, you can forget about it for the rest of your life. Okay. Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I don't know how I can make sure the speaker so that show nobody else.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I didn't get Google Doc in my email.
Okay, let me share with you. What is this? What do you want?
Happy, healthy,
What's it?
wait.
Can you write it down? No, maybe you don't need to tell us your
Okay. I just like, I think.
Okay, yeah, and just follow those steps. You can have your own doc. Everyone else, so you're all good. You have access to it. You have your own copy. You can work on it. Great. Okay, anyone not have the book?
Well, you don't have this.
Yeah. So
What happened to
I want to say you don't need to be an expert. If you really do want to dive deep into something, if you really want to help something that you made your writing accomplishment, something that you're really proud of, which I think is actually a great thing to do, good thing to do at the time. If you have the time and you think you get something out of it, it's great to do that. So this goes into a lot more detail with examples. In this workshop, we're not going to look at too many examples because every essay, a successful essay can look completely different from another one. Anything that's telling you it should look like this exactly it's not true. A really successful essay will depend on what is the best topic for you and what is your best approach, maybe even your easiest approach to that essay or try to get that topic. It also has a lot more details about the essay, which are the additional essays you write about, which I will address on Thursday, but isn't the focus of this class. So if you have questions about that, you can ask me. If you have time to skim through the parts of this that you're interested in, you can always bring questions about the book to me. But the approach we're doing here is that there's no approach to writing it in the book. It's information. What we're doing here is I'm walking you through it in a way that will lead you to, I think, the same place you get from the book. That's not the same thing. So we're using a method here. It's not the method, but you'll end up with a good essay. And I'm using it similar for my own essay. So I know it does work. Okay. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and get started? Hopefully we're go faster next time. Now you've done that, I'm not going to use anything too much. I don't have slides or anything like that. Do have something we're going to use them. Instead, I'm going to be writing on here, and I'm just going to be talking. So if you could take notes as I'm writing, that'd be best. And any part that says guided notes, that's something we're going to talk about. And look for try to fill in the text there. There's not always one exact right answer. You can put it in your words, but you should definitely find stuff. But if you do, we'll talk about this before we move ahead, because it'll think we'll be done. Okay. And also, if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate. There aren't that many people here. We don't have a strict schedule. We can always address them. Your questions are always important, because something that someone needs to know or wants to know, it's here to be useful information for at least one person. So I'm gonna stop sharing this. Get back to that later. Anyway, so my name is Kieran. You can call me Kieran. You can call me Dr. Lyons. I have a PhD in English and a Master's of Fine Arts in creative writing. And my undergrad degree was completely unrelated to both of those. I went to Rice. And I'm from Houston originally, but I live in Oregon, so I flew. I'm the director of education programs at TTT, which means some of you may know me from this. I host a lot of webinars with colleges or with experts. I find tutors. I am an instructor and a tutor in writing and college level English. So, but this part of the year, we're ramping up right to application season, which lasts until February almost. Hopefully for you guys, it'll be done before then. It'll be completely done, submitted everything. And during that time of year, I'm the college essay coach and also the interview coach. And as a coach, I'm not an editor. I'm definitely not a writer, but I just help people write something really good. And hopefully that's what we're going to do here, a little more accelerated. But if you need more help after this, that's something you can talk to Michelle about. We have a bunch of ways to sort of stay in touch with me, but I would encourage you to try to get as much out of this while you're in it, or I'm no longer here. Anyway, so what I want to do is go around kind of briefly, and each person, I want you just to say, what's your name? What school do you go to? And what's one thing you're excited about doing or experiencing or learning about in college? Okay, so we'll start with Cindy.
Well, my name is Cindy. I'm from Southern Texas. I want to go and register or
Cool. Great, Cindy.
College student included also has to be very interested in learning computer science and artificial intelligence.
Cool. Got some STEM majors here.
I'm from Baylor High School and I want to learn med college.
What?
Med.
Oh, okay, cool. Med. Like the math. Oh yeah, okay. Hi.
I'm Juliana. I'm from Seeker High School
Cool. Okay, Patrick.
Hi, I'm Patrick, and I go to Bridgeland High School, and I want to learn more about political science in high school, college. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm Pedro from Christian Christian. I'm go from
That's fair. I thought I was going to be a physics major, and then I majored in art and cognitive science. But then I took a bunch of French classes, and then I became a bunch of writing. So you can change your mind.
I'm living there at Memorial High School, and I find it's super oil and exploiting.
Olena, from Thomas High School. I want to maybe graduate my college.
Okay. Besides your major, is there anyone interested in parts of the college experience besides the class? No. Yeah, I mean, people. But I was gonna, in retrospect, I liked studying what I studied, but what I liked the best was I made friends that I still have. I made more friends in college that I still have than anywhere else, any other time. And those sort of diverse people, like go through their background, where they're from, what they're interested in. Don't get that many opportunities. Like I've got friends who are doctors, and I got friends who are programs too. Don't hesitate. Anyway, thank you. It's nice to meet everybody. Hopefully you can try to remember each other's names. I'd say right now, if you could like look at the people around you and just try to remember at least 1 or 2 people's names without looking at the name. That'll be a good start. Right? And each time you come in, hopefully by the end you'll. So, okay. At this point, I want everyone to have the Google Doc open in front of them. Like I said, you can take notes however you want. This is your document, and by the end of this, we'll be adding to this, and you will have something like 40 pages of notes that will hopefully cover all the important points. You'll have exercises that you'll be end up using. You'll have evidence of the work you've done. But hopefully, this will be a useful thing for you at the end. The idea is that you leave with this, and then this will actually help you finish writing, or help your friends, or whatever you do. Okay, so what we're going to do in this workshop, so we're here for 3 days, today, Wednesday, and Thursday after. You're going to learn what makes a personal statement effective by writing a personal statement that will hopefully be effective. You'll choose your essay topic, and we'll actually do that in class today. That's the one thing we must get to. You have to have that chosen and happy with it, and ideally discussed it with me, so that when you go home today, you actually go write your draft. And it's not going to be scary. I'm going to take it step by step. But yeah, you should be ready to write it. Maybe you have an idea now. Any topic can be a good essay. So it's not as stressful as it sounds, but yeah, you'll get that today. You'll write a content draft, which is what you'll do after class by tomorrow at noon. And a content draft is just a draft that is, you don't worry about structure, you don't worry about storytelling, you don't worry about what college representative would think looking at it. It's just stuff, information and details. And then you'll revise that a couple times. You'll do a major revision after Wednesday's class, before Thursday's class, and then you'll also have time to work on that in Thursday's class. So it should look pretty good, and you should be several steps into the process by you'll have a really solid foundation. You probably won't be done. You definitely won't have like proofread it. You probably want someone else to look at it. You'll be pretty much there. And if you really worked at it, I think you could be completely done and ready to submit by next week, which is really fast. You don't have to. You might have great ideas. You might even completely rewrite it using whatever you in this class. But it can be done. And you'll learn how to do that part on your own, right? Like you'll learn enough to see and test whether it's done. And then you should be able to help others do this, and you will be helping each other here. If you have any concerns at any point with the topic you've chosen to write about, or the essay you've chosen to write, and you don't want to share it with other people in the class, you can talk to me, and we can do that. You don't have to choose a topic that's like extremely difficult and life-changing and whatever, but you might. And if you have concerns about that, you can discuss them with me. Also, anything we do in this class is going to stay in here. So if we talk about anything related to your essays, talking about important stuff in your life, please do keep it, confidential. And I'm not going to be sending your essays to your parents or anything. Of course, they can ask you for it, but your essays are your essays to do what you want with it after this. And I'll be giving you some advice on Thursday on kind of how to ask for it. There are better and worse ways to do it. I've definitely seen essays get worse after someone, but they have pretty clear ideas of what they want. So I want you all to take a moment to add what your own goals for yourself are, like whether you want to address a question, whether you want to learn about something specific. There's no right answer for that, but I want you to add at least one, ideally a few more things you intend to accomplish by Thursday, besides those things that are listed there. Yeah, I'll take a look at those, but you don't need to share them. So either, to be honest. And you might actually want to come back to that after we learn a little bit more about one of those things where the more you learn, the more you might know that you don't know. You might think you actually have a great grasp on everything, and then as you learn more about it, you realize you don't. That's just how it works. And all those you want to be STEM majors, you'll experience that in college. You probably think you probably have an idea of what you want to learn about, but you probably have no idea how much they're really. Yeah. Actually. Okay, so the personal statement is what everyone who works with it calls the main essay you write for college. It is the one that goes to almost every school you apply to. Some would say even most schools, most competitive schools require one in the US. It is kind of a weird US thing. Other countries don't really require them so much. In the UK, there's the UCAS, but that's much more straightforward. It's like it's explaining why you're going to be successful and what you want to achieve, almost like applying to grad school or a job. In the US, we have this weird thing, personal statement, and it goes to almost every school for the coalition application. Same essay goes to almost every school for the common application, just overlapping. But these are just the big platforms that you submit things to apply to multiple schools using. And it can also be used for the applied Texas. You might have to adapt it a little bit for the applied Texas, but it pretty much goes to every school. Does anyone know? Has anyone been taught anything about it, like from your English teacher, your counselors, your high school, anything like that? Or has anyone learned anything from it already, or anything about it already? You're just not there yet. I think I remember writing mine in this TTT lit class. It must have been the second semester, and it was weird. I don't remember what I learned about it. But does anyone know anything? Have you picked up anything? Here, like, I don't know what's on here. Okay, yeah, you're visually nodding. Okay. Someone's bringing someone in. Okay. Well, it is a creative essay about you. So it's creative in the sense that it is not an academic essay. It's not a 5-paragraph essay. I mean, it could be 5 paragraphs long, but it's not the one you write in school. There isn't a thesis statement. It is an essay that, through whatever approach, whatever topic you choose to write about, and topics are pretty much completely open, it shares something about you. So it's completely focused on you, and the approach is open, which is why it's something that it is worth taking a class on or talking to someone about. Just because it's weird. You will, unless you're like me and go to get a master's in creative writing, you'll never write an essay. It's almost like a memoir essay. The whole genre of things that you can write books. Anyway, so you'll send it to as much of the things as you apply. Like I said, to the Common App, or the Coalition App, or Apply Texas, it's big ones. If a school doesn't accept either of those, it still usually asks pretty much the same question. And the big exception, which we can talk a little bit about, but isn't necessarily worth worrying about a great deal right now, is the University of California system, which is the biggest college system in, I think, the world. Having written a personal statement will set you up for them, but they actually don't ask for a single essay. They ask for 4 shorter essays that add up. They're each about half the length of the personal statement. And their expectations are a little different. So don't go into that thinking it's going to be exactly the same. I do write about them in my book. And if you have questions about that, if you know you're applying to these schools, it's the same thing. They all get the same one. They all get the same 4 that you should write. For the essay, so the basic stuff is you will be submitting it. You can do it as a Word doc. Or just paste it in. Probably can't have a title. Can't do fancy formatting. And but you don't need to write 650 words. It's really hard to get past the impulse that you need to use all of the words. But I'd say anywhere from 500 to 650 is probably fine. Much shorter than that, and you're maybe wasting an opportunity to share stuff that you otherwise could. But the 650 word essay is not better by proportionally than the shorter essay. Taking something out that doesn't need to be in there or expressing yourself more efficiently is better than using up the word count. So don't ever pad it out. In fact, it should be a very sort of dense and efficient essay. And your goal, so if you're in here, you're way ahead of this, but if you want to finish by, I say September, you can get away with later than that, depending on how many early access or early revision schools you apply to. That's up to you. Most schools they kind of end up November is when it really ramps up, and a lot of schools have not even early application, then they have regular applications due then. And you really want to be, because you have also the supplemental essays, which are the essays that are usually shorter, but sometimes they really add up, that each school asks for in addition to that. Or through each program, and maybe scholarship. This is a, relatively speaking, small portion of the essays you'll probably end up writing. You might end up writing, if you are applying to 10 highly selective schools that have a lot of essays, you might write 20. Some of them will be short, some of them will be pretty long, but you can, often they're very similar. Once you've written one of the type, you've kind of figured it out, and then you do it again. And it's not quite as abstract and weird as the personal statement. So I think it will take less of a knack to get it. However, for maybe obvious reasons, but for an individual school, the supplemental essays are probably more important than the personal statement, if they're asking them. Does anyone have a guess why that might be? So what I'm saying is, I think the personal statement is the most important because it goes to some schools. It is the single most important essay because the most people read it and it affects the most decisions. I do think that the supplemental essays for individual school are more important. Why do you think that might be? Anyone? The other way to think about it is, why do we know that? If they are asking you for a supplemental essay, it's asking for information they want to know and they don't think they're necessarily going to get from the personal statement. Right? They'll ask, why do you want to go to this school? What do you want to major? What do you want to do? Some schools will ask you weird stuff, and it's kind of to see if you're like going to be a fit. If you like the strange questions they're asking, University of Chicago has a lot of weird ones. Liberal arts schools have a lot of weird ones. Wake Forest asks you about books you've read in the last year because they want you to group books. So you want to get this done so that you can work on that, and you're going to work on that around this, around what they're already getting, right? You're going to give them a new command, but that's a little puzzle piece. It's a little bit of a different shape you're trying to fit them for each school, because what their expectations are, what they're what the essays are asking for. I think I left this on your document. So what are some expectations of a school essay? Like you've been told for English class or history class or whatever, that you need that your essays need to do for what they need to include. Isn't your next required to know like what does an essay usually have in school? But thesis? Yeah. Yeah, there's a thesis statement. And the thesis statement, right, it's just directly stating what your argument's gonna be, or directly just summarizing what your argument is. Yeah, often we'll have a counter argument. Also, we'll have an argument, right? Usually we'll have, stemming from that thesis, something that is logically building up so that someone, when they leave, they agree with your thesis, or at least they believe. So you have argument, counter argument, thesis. What else? Yeah, evidence. What does it look like? What is the structure of an essay like that? It might have a counter argument paragraph. I usually think about that as being at the end of the body paragraphs. It's got an introduction, usually one paragraph, usually it's a thesis at the end, and then it has the body paragraphs, probably about 3, and those body paragraphs might be each supporting some sort of claim with evidence sandwich thing. Maybe some are doing counter arguments. Maybe, they probably match. Personal statement is not like that, so please don't even try. It should not have an introduction. It should have an opening. It shouldn't have a conclusion. It should have an ending, and that may not be a full single paragraph. It's definitely not a paragraph that functions the way that you're expected to write for an academic essay. It will have what I call a topic statement, and that is for you and me. So I will ask you to write a topic statement that basically summarizes what you're writing about and what matters. Major thing we're doing today, pretty much the main thing we're doing in class today. But that's not necessarily in the essay. It could be. And it's not something that can be disagreed. Is true. Your goal is not to get your audience to agree with you, your audience to understand you, right? It's to get them to like you, to feel like, maybe most of them feel like they know you, which is completely different than an academic essay. An academic essay, depending on the teacher, could have been written by anybody. It would still be effective. Maybe that's not the best use of ethos, but practically speaking, that's the case. In your essays, you often are told not to write with I. I think it's silly anyway. I mean, I'm a PhD, you write with I write my dissertation. But anyway, yeah, it's about you. It's from you, and unless you're doing something really clever, you should say I, me, and you should say it constantly. Almost every sentence should come back to you. You, the person observing the thing you're writing about. You, the person responding, or doing, or feeling, or thinking, or whatever. The voice related to that. This should be written. It should sound like you, like a polished version of you, right? Not this is a different type of writing than messaging a friend, but it should. So someone who knows you should read it and maybe even be able to guess if it's you. And it's not we're all different at different times in our lives, at different times in our day. We're talking, but it should be. The word's authentic, but authentic really just means honest, and you're not pretending to be different than you are. You're not going to express everything about you and everything about how you see the world and have sound in every circumstance because it's impossible, but it should seem like you when you're not putting on airs, but maybe when you're trying not to make fun or whatever. Don't worry about that yet. And most of all is a school essay, whether you're trying to do this or not, or it's a essay or whatever essay is trying to impress, you're not trying to be impressive with a personal statement. You might impress them, but it's not at all the useful goal to be impressive. It is to express yourself. It's to get the reader to see something about you, to understand you, to feel like they've met you at least a little bit. And there's actually some really practical ways that you can do that, which we'll talk about as we sort of get into it, but that's the goal. You want them. So I watched this movie because I heard a college admissions officer, I believe it's for Wake Forest, it's for a selective liberal arts school, said that the way she thinks of it is a good personal statement, literally like a little version of you puffed up on the admissions officer's desk and starts talking. Like they want to feel like they're admitting a real person. And then, based on that, they can have to decide whether you'll be a fit at the school. But it has to be the same little person talking every time. It has to be authentic. And I really promise that someone who reads thousands and thousands of essays a year can tell when someone is being authentic and someone is trying to game it. You just want to do the best version, really express the best version of yourself, or the clearest vision of some aspect of yourself that wouldn't otherwise get across as you do. So I wrote on here, to highlight or bold the words that are required for an essay to be effective. They're impressive. I told you it's not that. Groundbreaking, beautiful, poetic, emotional, shocking, perfect, brilliant, sophisticated, interesting, thoughtful, personal. So I would say must be true of every essay. More of those are probably more than 3 are true of any given essay. Like probably some of you are going to write beautiful essays or emotional essays or maybe not perfect essays. But someone have a guess about one of those that they're pretty sure should characterize a personal statement. Or one of them they're pretty sure does not characterize a personal statement. Personal? Yes, it's in the mid. Personal just meaning it is about you, but I mean, what else does personal mean to you? Like, what does personal mean? It has maybe what like the opposite of personal might be professional or academic or formal, right? So it doesn't mean it has to be casual, but it has to be not just about you, but maybe like you, or as a suggestion that knows you. Like if someone's a close personal friend, right? It has something to do with intimacy almost. What else? There's 2 more. That one's right. Yeah. What does thoughtful mean though in like the context of an essay?
Like you put a lot of thought into your essay.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be, polished would be another way to do it. But it's to show that you put a thought into it, right? That you took the essay seriously. You don't take yourself seriously. That you took the time to make it sound good, to avoid errors, and also to be thinking about the topic deeply that you're writing about. Some essays are going to be very introspective, very thoughtful, very reflective. All of them, the baseline, are going to be showing your thought deeply about the topic, and that you basically worked hard, that you thought about it over time and made your essays look better. Doesn't mean it has to keep going until it's like brilliant, but yeah. And one more. This one might not be possible to guess based on what I've said before, but it needs to be interesting. So I think interesting, thoughtful, and personal gets at everything that it must be. And it's something, if it is interesting, thoughtful, and personal, it doesn't have to be anything else. It could be, depending on your own goals, the topic, and your time, and writing ability, whatever. But you just want the reader to be interested, not shocked or not, blown away necessarily, but you want them to want to read to the end, want to know what you're going to say next or what happened or whatever. And the other side of being interesting is being memorable. So if you find something intriguing, it's just kind of thinking a little bit more. Again, it doesn't have to be completely out of nowhere, bizarre. It'll be literally unique, but it doesn't have to be something no one's ever seen before. But these relate to each other. If it is truly personal and you're putting a lot of thought into it, it's not going to be cliche. It's not going to be stereotypical. It's not going to be what they expect because they don't know you, and you're sharing something with them they don't know about. So it will be interesting. And that's it. Interesting, thoughtful, personal. And the 3 things it should do, I'll just tell you this one. These are basically the same thing. It should make you stand out from other people, including ones who on paper and the rest of their application look the same as you or very similar to you. Because there will be someone who's very similar to you, probably. 2 is to make readers feel like they know you, at least a little bit, that you're not a stranger, not a complete stranger. And then it should show thought and effort. And that is, interesting, personal, and thoughtful. And that's it.
So you should just personally.
Make you stand out. Make you stand out from other people. And you don't have to overstate. You all are different, right? You're not literally the same people, even from someone who on paper looks really similar to you. But you have to do the work in order to make it possible for the admission officer to get that. So that's the overview. That's like the big picture of what you're going to achieve with the program. I'll get you there sort of step by step. But what do you have any other questions about it right now? What it looks like, what colleges are expecting, timeline is. We'll get to how to write it, but if you have questions about that too. As you might be able to tell, with just those three things it needs to be, this is three things it needs to achieve. You can imagine a huge variety of essays that could achieve that. And that to be being personal or making you stand out is going to depend on each person. You can't just do it the same way as someone else. And when someone tells you you can, hopefully they are taking a broad enough approach that will account for a wide variety of people. There's some people like me out there who have methods, some of which I think are really good. The ones that I think are really good are the ones that could capture anybody's approach and work for anybody. Don't tell you to do it a particular way. The very last thing you want to do is look at an example and try to. I've seen people do that. Weird, you can tell. Even if you've never seen the original, you can tell. And also, if you're an admissions officer, you might have actually seen the original. Probably have. Okay. We're talking about technology now. I'm going to plug this back in. And also do that. So you all have figured out that we're using Google Docs. I'm not gonna go over that too much. But this document's gonna end up being the thing that we work with, we work together on, and we can. Okay. Did everyone get all the information here? You might have read something different than me, but okay. That's the most important thing, right? Make you stand out, make you just feel like no, you didn't which will automatically happen. So we're going to use 3 software platforms. And 2 of them you've gotten access to, and hopefully you can get on now. We'll figure that out. There's Custom College Plan, which is the basis of all of the college application work. It's like this for you. How many of you have already been able to look at this log? You haven't even like that. Okay, like hopefully you should already have this set up. If you don't, I can talk to Michelle and get you added. In the context of this course, we're not going to do a crazy amount of stuff with it, but it actually is really useful. I can tell you some more sort of, one-on-one or briefly about what you can do with it. It makes applying to college really easy if you're working with to the top. Just keeps track of absolutely everything. It's really great. They recently overhauled it, so it works with phones and tablets too, so which is great. But for our purposes, pretty much all that's going to go in here is to-dos. Maybe not even a ton of those, but basically, add whatever we're going to do it to see. It's a little bit better about sending you reminders and stuff. Those we just show right in the front. Over explain this, but if you want to learn a lot about how this works, I have a whole training you can just watch. It's like an hour. And the other thing you want to do here is, well, I'll show you one thing. So if you add stuff to your list, which you can do if you want, you can use the software without working with us. Won't see it. If you add stuff to your college list, down here, my list, you can then sync all of their deadlines and their application. It'll tell you what they are, and it'll automatically move it into the other platform. So it's a good way to think ahead. We would keep track of that. When we didn't use the software before, it was just like this Google sheet like spreadsheet that was just like impossible to keep up to date, even for one person, and this is easier. The other thing is you can learn a lot about a particular school here. All this information. And the main thing I want to point out that I like is a lot of this guide. If you go to any school, you can just search them up there, or you can find them on your list. You can get the FISC guide. You only have to buy a book or buy access to it. And it's really good. They're like reviews of schools. They're not ratings or rankings, but they have talked to tons of students, and they try to describe to you what a school is like and how the students feel about it. And I think it does a better job of almost everything at telling you what a school is besides the number, besides being ranked X in engineering or nationally. And having some number of people, it's like, what is a school that you've never attended actually like? And every school, I've been to a lot of schools, or I've got a lot of degrees. It's always been pretty accurate. So I recommend that if you're curious about schools, take advantage of this free access to the program. And it has kind of rankings, those are sort of big levels. And then cool stuff like the strongest programs and which are schools that are similar people go to, or similar people consider. Anyway, the main thing here, we use custom college time for to-dos. Adam, it'll email you. And then essay. So just click on that essay button. No, I don't know if you missed that, but it's over here on the left side. Essays. If you click it, hopefully you should be already set up with this. If you're not with us, we'll right now. Click essay and it'll open. Let's editate. It's in the URL. What editate does is that's where we're going to keep track of the actual draft. And it's also where we'll do the brainstorming today. So that's the main thing we need to get through today is brainstorming. So you'll send drafts there. It works with Google Docs. So it basically manages Google Docs for you. You actually be writing in Google Docs and I'll be commenting, but the different drafts will be in the deadlines and all that stuff will be arranged through it. As it gets more complicated, it is really, really useful. The main way it syncs directly with custom college plan to keep all of your schools and their deadlines up to date. You can also add stuff manually. So if you don't end up working with Desktop after this, you can still use Editate. You just have to kind of put the stuff in yourself. And it has the same information as custom college plan on what you need to do. And it has a lot of features, has a lot of cool stuff. Trying to keep it simple for this. You're just gonna brainstorm here, and then you're going to manage your drafts here. So both the drafts and so if you want to message me, you can email me. That's fine. I would say that the best thing to do is to message me on custom college plan, which is popped up when you go to the main page. It'll email me when you send it to me. It'll just keep us on track in case things get lost in email a lot more easily. You can also set up text notifications and text messaging, which might be easier for you. I'll also link like the course documents, additional stuff. Most of that will be going through Google Docs. If you want a PDF copy of the book, I'll add resources stuff like that. Yeah. We'll do the brainstorming there today. Track the essay progress, you can submit, and you can get feedback. And then word process bugs, we'll just just keep up to date. There's only one thing there, but that's actually the one you probably spend the most time looking at. Yeah, take it. And yeah. Any questions about the technology we use? Has anyone had a chance to click all the way through to the essay? So I guess you might not have accidentally found yourself there, but So you do all have access to custom college plans. Is that right? Has anyone not been able to get onto that? Okay. Getting from that to the essays is very easy. We just have to make sure that you're all activated. And if you're not, I can do that right. Now we're gonna move on to the next thing. I can come back to this later. You still need to learn if you still need anything. But this next thing we're gonna do is require you to have access to the data. So if all of you can go to custom college and then click on that essays, which is a reminder, just over here, right? On the left hand side. And let me know when you're able to get into that next thing. If it tells you you can't or you're stuck, let me know and we'll work. Okay. Who is able to get to meditate? Yeah. Okay. Anyone getting like an error or it's saying you can't get there or something like that? Just, we'll make sure you got it. Unfortunately, meditate doesn't work very well on phones and stuff. I mean, you can like keep your emails, it can tell you what's happened, and you can open Google Docs, but it's really hard to actually submit anything. So you can usually actually navigate it well enough to get to your Google Doc and like look at my feedback, but it really just doesn't work very well on phones. But it's fine because you're probably not going to be right at so we're going to do when you get this column, we don't know you use that notice, whatever. What you want to do is go to the content on the left hand side. And then the first tab, you automatically go to essay development. But what I want you to do is double check that out. Yeah. The application. So this is going to be some more solo work, and during this time, you have any questions? Go to the application plan. I think it says get started if you haven't done it yet. And I want you to just do it. Just do the whole thing. It's sort of a structured brainstorming. Don't worry if something doesn't come up that you've been thinking about. You can always add it later. But this will get you to the point where you have some ideas to consider. Even if you're pretty set on one, you might be able to incorporate other ideas. And it's pretty open. It'll allow you to do choose which. Sometimes it'll let you choose what things you write about. So while you're completing it, what I want you to emphasize is, so don't overthink it and that like don't agonize over which question to answer and how beautifully you answer it, but do fully answer the questions. If it asks you a question, do try to be extremely honest when you go through each step of it. At the end, it will pop out with some things that you think are your defining traits. You can disagree, you can ignore them, but it's useful to have that generated for you. And we'll have a bunch of stuff about what you're interested in now and what you're interested in for the future. And those are going to be the pieces that you'll work. Some of them tend to be your personal statement, some of them are your supplemental, some of them are probably already adequate to your or will be shown by your presentation. Or you can not worry about that, but it'll give you basically everything you need to write about. So we're going to do that. It says 45 minutes. I'm going to give you about 45 minutes. Do take the time to hold as many ideas as possible, as many details related to those ideas. Because we're working at a pretty fast pace. You want to have good stuff. So you're gonna have to tell them about 10:30, 10:45, depending on how quickly you guys do it. To complete these first things, and everything under application If you click get started, it'll just take you through all of it. A few of them take 5 minutes, a few of them take longer. If you get that done, hopefully toward the end of that time, I want you to do this in the Google Doc based on that. So move stuff over. So you'll define words, move them over. It'll tell you what your application traits are, copy them over. Then you can paste the results of your brainstorm here. And if it doesn't show you anything, what you can do is click on a few results after you've done something, and I'll show you. So like this fake student, it looks like this. The other thing is when it asks you for a title for something, do try to come up with a little bit of a descriptive title. This will help. It'll help you organize the information a little bit in the next step. Okay, so 30 minutes. You can use the restroom if you want. Take a break if you want. At the end of it, I want you to have this completely done. Should show it's done, and then copy it over. Any questions about that? Okay. And to keep you on track, do take note of what it suggests, how long you spend each step, so you don't get too much. Yes. Okay, do you not have this right now?